Welcome to the Dan and Alan Review Stuff Show. I am your host, Dan Burke, reporting from parts unknown as always, and with me, once again, from the shores of a private beachside oasis in beautiful Oceanside, California, I'm happy to introduce to you the Duke of Discourse, the MC for all occasions, both big and small, Alan Freeman. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing fine, except I have this rash on my...
Oh, hey, wait a minute, Alan. The studio doors have opened up here. It seems to be an Elvis impersonator, perhaps? Sir, who are you?
I'm Elvis Presley, and you're Dan?
I am Dan, sir, but I find it hard to believe that you are Elvis Presley, since Elvis Presley was born in 1935, and unfortunately he died in 1977. How did you return? We thought you were dead.
Well, it's a long story, but I've been cryogenically frozen at the Alcor Life Extension Foundation at 7985 East Coma Drive, Scottsdale, Arizona. Oh, sorry, man. That was supposed to be a secret.
You were frozen, Elvis?
Well, I had a overweight imposter since my show on NBC in 1968, my comeback special. I
have to say, you look fantastic. Where have you been living all this time?
Well, I sleep upstairs at Graceland. That's why it's roped off to visitors.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but they are producing a new Elvis movie right now with Tom Hanks in it. Are you part of this? Have you heard of this? Well,
I'm playing myself, man. Who else? Who else is going to play me?
That's true. It's true. And is Tom Hanks playing the Colonel, as we've heard?
Well, we had to find another Tom. Tommy Hanks, I heard he was okay, but, I never saw him act before.
I noticed that you have brought in a microphone, and are you going to sing for us?
My throat's still a little frozen. You'll have to excuse me. But here we go. Are you ready? Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the Alan Dan show, 3 to get ready now. Go, cat, go, but don't you step on my new movie show. Well, you can do anything but lay off my brand new movie. Well, you can knock me down, Alan, step in my face, slander my name all over the place, do anything that you want to do, but Dan, I'll lay off my new show.
Wow! I am blown away. Folks, if you could just be in the studio with me for this exclusive thing, I am here with the king of Western Pop, the Memphis Flash, Old Snake Hips, Elvis Presley himself, the king of rock and roll. Wait, Elvis, you look like you're heading out the door. Are you leaving? Do you have to go?
Well, I could do one more small song. Oh, that's all right, Dan. That's all right for you. That's all right, Alan. Just any way you do. Well, that's all right. Well, that's all right. That's all right, it's Alan and Dan show.
Wow. And Elvis has left the building, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, I am blown away. For those who don't know it, Oscar-nominated director Baz Luhrmann has created a new Elvis movie, and evidently starring the Elvis himself. It comes out June 24th, 2022 in theaters. And I am just over the moon at how good this looks. It's just amazing. Alan, what do you think about what just happened?
I don't know. How did he know where you're recording from? How did he know?
That's true, because it's very, very hard to find my studio off the beaten track. not on any Google Maps. As far as I know, they've been wiped clean. So it is unusual he's been making it. And, for a man who is, I guess, what is he, about 125 years old? He looks great.
I guess the freezing helped keep him
it more than
middle age anyway.
And his hips, I mean, the way he dances and moves, I don't know. He's still red hot. So I think that the rumors of the King's death have been vastly rated. I don't think it really happened.
I can't wait to see him in that new show, that new movie.
Moving on to our next topic. This is a movie that is beloved by fans all over the world. And I believe it even started its own crazy religion called Dudism. And Alan, we're talking today about the Big Lebowski. And I'd like you to introduce it to our listeners.
All right. Excuse me. The movie, The Big Lebowski, starring Jeff Bridges, and it's two men are named Jeffrey Lebowski. One's a lazy, pot-smoking, white Russian drinking hippie who goes by the nickname The Dude. The other's a self-made millionaire, war veteran, who lives in a mansion with a full-time assistant due to his being handicapped. Their paths cross when the millionaire's trophy wife owes money to a known pornographer, and she's held in lieu of getting his money repaid. The thugs hired by this pornographer initially confront the Dude because they are unaware he has the same name. Wanting payback for his now destroyed rug, the Dude seeks out the millionaire Lebowski. What follows takes the Dude and his bowling buddies, Walter and Donnie, on a mission full of intrigue, kidnapping, pornography, nihilists, white Russians, and more white Russians.
Now, this is one of your favorite movies. So talk about this. Why do you love it so much?
Yeah, it is one of my favorite movies. And I just love the fact, and a lot of this stuff I love before I even figured out why I liked it so much. But I have recently also been studying the movie, and it's a takeoff of The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart. And in the 40s, 50s, mostly 40s, the guy was the big, tough, smart guy, that always solved the crime, and the girl, he always got the girl and all that jazz. And this is just the freaking opposite of all that, where the Dude is he has no power, and the women in the movie are the ones that are all strong and telling, and taking advantage of him, more or less. And so it's just a complete flip on the Big Sleep. Yeah. But I just love the humor. It's sort of deadpan. I mean, none of it's out front of you. It's all, you just got to listen, and you got to watch. And I love the way things keep coming back. They'll mention something and then it comes back later, I just love how it's all tied together. Yeah.
Where did you see it the first time? In a theater?
Whoa. I don't think so. It was in the 90s. The movie came out in 98, and I think it had only been out for, it had come out on VHS, right? And my kids, I had just got divorced, and my kids would come see me on every weekend, my three kids. So they were all young, 14, whatever. And we would walk 2 blocks down to the rental. There was a little private, it wasn't Blockbuster, it was just somebody else. And we'd go in and rent movies and just watch them all weekend, And they had posters rolled up you could buy. Well, we went in and we just grabbed it with a bunch of other movies, and we were all laughing our ass off at how funny it was. Even the kids liked it, And so I went back and got the poster and put it up in my apartment. And so, I guess at the very, if sometimes we liked it, we would watch it again. Watch it on Saturday and watch it again on Sunday, And but it was more as time went on that I kept coming back to it that I really realized how much I liked it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That I would keep going back to it, yeah.
The word fuck is in this movie every 30 seconds. And so you turned your middle school kids onto this movie. That's a whole nother question for child services, but they're all adults now and they seem fine. So Alan dodged a bullet there. I want to circle back to the movie. So you watch it the first time, and you're laughing, and so you're drawn to it pretty much because it was a comedy and good memories with you and the family watching it in some respects, huh?
Well, I think I just sort of, I don't know if I could say the word, I can't think of the word, but where I see myself in the dude. It wasn't that way because I never was into, drugs and stuff at all. So, but I thought it was hilarious because I did have friends that were like that, and they ended up like that where they didn't have anything and all they wanted to do was bowl or whatever. I had friends like that, so I was laughing at them, basically when I was laughing at the dude. But they kind of hooked me at the very beginning that he's moping around and that you have that masculine voice over, and it's talking about the dude, and how he's a big shot, but he's just wearing a robe and he's in the grocery store. And he writes a check for 60 cents for a carton of milk.
Yep. On 9/11, yep.
He's such a loser. Oh, if you ever watch it real close, you'll see for just a second the cashier lady looks at him like, oh, fuck. What a loser. She gives him that look.
Yes. Oh, it's wonderful. So that's what draws you in. Okay. Well, now, if you were going to tell somebody in just a couple strokes what the plot of this movie is for you, what would you say this movie is? You're gonna tell somebody, hey, you need to watch this movie. Here's what it's about. What would you tell me? I want to hear it.
Okay, it's they take the biggest loser they can find. This billionaire takes the biggest loser he can find, and then he has him deliver money to get his wife back, who's been kidnapped. At least that's what we're all led to believe, throughout the movie. And then it's the whole adventure is him and John Goodman's character, Walter, and how they interact, and they go and try to deliver the money and try to solve this case. But to me, one of the funniest things when I rewatch it is that Walter is always right. He sounds like the craziest dude in the fucking world, and he comes up with the weirdest answers, but it turns out he's right. Did you know that? Did you realize that?
I did not realize that.
I'll get you a toe. I can get a toe anywhere. This isn't her toe. I was like, how the fuck does he know? But it turns out he's right.
Now, the title of the movie, The Big Lebowski, refers to the fact that the actual Big Lebowski is a millionaire of great power, and that our hero, Jeff Bridges, who calls himself the Dude, he is also a Lebowski, but he is not the Big Lebowski. It's a case of mistaken identity that actually it's a case of mistaken identity that actually leads this all into happening. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Yes. That's why they all come. They bust into his little crappy apartment, and they pee on his rug, destroy his rug, and then they push his face into the toilet. And later they have that was somebody else that came in. But anyway, that's how he gets connected to the millionaire. He goes to the millionaire and says, I want you to replace my rug. And then that was a funny part when he goes, okay. And then the guy, that was what I was going to tell you before. This movie also has where authority and hippies are interacting, right? And you got the Big Lebowski, the millionaire, is yelling at the dude like, get a job, man, and all this, right? And then later he gets arrested. The dude gets arrested for being drugged. He had been drugged, and he was in the middle of the road running. And he gets arrested by the Malibu police, right? And then that guy is just the same. He's like, you freaking bums, and he throws his cup, hits him dude in the head. And it's just constantly the man against the hippies, culture, fighting it out.
Yes. Right. So that's part of the big tension in the movie and the funniness of it.
Yes. And the fact that he doesn't care. It's what's funny. The more they yell at him, the more they're screaming in his face. He's like, well, that's your opinion, man. That's just your opinion. And I love when he said, is this how you act if you were getting a job on a Tuesday? And he goes, what day is it? What day is it now? He just doesn't care. And that's what I loved about the whole movie is that he just doesn't care, and everything just keeps happening around him, and even John Goodman's character, Walter, is always coming up with his Vietnam stories because it's like the only thing ever happened in his life that, was important, I guess. And so everything has to do with Nam, and when Donnie passes away and they were going to throw his ashes over the cliff, and then Walter's giving his little sermon, and he's like, and then like all the other, it's a sad story, like all the other guys who died in Nam, and then you see the dude look up like, fuck, he's talking about Nam again. Everything has to do with Nam. Oh. But see, that's another thing. The males are all castrated in this movie. None of them have any power, and none of even it turns out even the Big Lebowski, the millionaire, turns out he didn't have any money either. His daughter is Julianne Moore, and she goes, "Oh, we just let him keep the house and look like he's still doing something."
Question: do you think any lessons are learned by the end of this thing?
What I took from the whole thing? That white Russians are really good, and I always have them when I get a chance.
There you go. There you go. Lesson learned.
And I stole as much as I could when I did my movie. We did a lot of stuff that came back. Like they'll mention something like the nihilist, and then here they are. They come back and they're attacking them in the parking lot. Everything they mention comes back again to haunt the dude, in some way.
What do you think the place of bowling is in this movie?
That's what connects Walter and Donnie to the dude. That's how that's when they have their talks together, and you're kind of moving the plot along, and it's like they had to have something they're all interested in, right? And it had to be something that didn't take a lot of skill, right? And that would be bowling, probably. And they're on the bowling league. Yeah, so that's how they probably all met. That's the way it looks, because they're all so different.
Wasn't this thing filmed at a famous bowling alley or some backstory on it?
Well, it was filmed in Hollywood Lanes. Yes, and I know all about this backstory. I looked it up because I thought, hey, I live at like an hour and a half from LA. I'd go down and check out this bowling alley. It'd be fun, right? So I look into it, and it turns out about 4 or 5 years after the movie was made, the city decided to shut the bowling alley down and build a school there. And they have eminent domain, they call it, where they can just walk up to anybody's business and say, you're out of business now, sorry. And I guess they pay them for the property. I don't know. But they make them leave. And then the bowling alley sat there abandoned for about 5 years. And they had pictures where people walked into it and had sprayed graffiti and stuff on the inside. And then eventually it did get torn down, and only in the last 5 years they did build a school. So it took, many years to do what they were going to do. But that was pretty, I called that no respect, right?
Right. Was there anything else ever filmed there at that bowling alley?
Yes, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but they mentioned 2 movies that were filmed there. Yeah.
So it was a popular place to shoot stuff. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Was there any? Now you read a making of book. Is that correct?
Yes. I read a couple of different ones.
Okay. Was there any special challenges in making this movie?
Well, I don't think they spent all that much time because they plot everything out to the nth degree. There's no improvising, right? It's all in the script. And those 2 guys alternate. One of them gets director credit, the Coen brothers. One of them, Ethan or whatever, will get credit for one movie being director, and then one's writer, and then they'll swap it on the next one. Because what they're really doing is each one's doing both jobs almost at the same time. Like one of them will say, okay, we're going to set this up, and then the other one walks over and goes, what if we do this? And so it's pretty even, supposedly, who's doing what.
Okay.
Because they are twins, and they kind of have the same mind. Is the way it looks.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, and they finish each other's sentences and whatnot. Yeah. And so it didn't take that long to film everything because it was all just like boom, 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 and they knew what they were going to do. Now, the only pictures I've seen of behind the scenes was at the bowling alley, and they had the big guy, they had the huge camera on like a crane-like thing, and then they had this guy figured out a way, because this is, the 90s, to put a camera and make it look like it was in the bowling ball itself. Remember that scene where you see the ball rolling? And then later you see it again when he supposedly gets stuck in that dream. He gets stuck in the bowling ball, right? So they used that a couple times. But they had this thing rigged up where also it was like on a board, and they rolled it behind the bowling ball. So they had all these ingenious little tricks that they were pulling, to make it better than just normal, to be totally different.
I'm amazed you've read several making of books. Is there any other interesting things you pull away from those books that you learned?
Well, I read them a couple years ago, so you're testing my memory power.
Okay, so nothing that jumps to your mind.
Well, the books were talking about the cult of the Big Lebowski, and they started having, maybe 10 years ago, these big conventions where people all dressed up like different characters and showed up. At first they expected, there'll be a couple of hundred people show up, and there were thousands of people showed up. And then as it keeps going, as multiple thousands are showing up. And even at Comic-Con, the last time they had one, 2019, which I go to almost every year, and we're walking around outside, and there's people in costumes all over the place, even outside the convention. And there was a guy dressed in the robe and the slippers and holding he had a glass for White Russian, but he had made it out of some kind of plastic, so it looked like a White Russian, but it wasn't really. Unbelievable.
Awesome.
Unbelievable stuff. And I've also at WonderCon, I saw a guy dressed as the dude, and they always have him like in his robe and his slippers, and like in the movie when he gets abducted, he's in the street and they grabbed him and threw him into the limousine, and he's like, "What's the beverage, man? What's the beverage?" And he has jelly shoes on, and that's how they'll dress him like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Why do you think so many books were written about this movie?
Well, it just took a long time for it. It seems like the movies that take a while to gather up fans like this are the ones that stick around, though. Like there'll be a big hit movie, Rush Hour 2, everybody goes to it, and then you just kind of forget about it and it's over. But this one, they seem to love the character so much, and they just keep watching it, over and over. And the next thing you know, they're going to the conventions of Big Lebowski convention. It's just you just get hooked on it, and you try to tell other people about it. You got to watch this. Oh, I wanted to say this. Sometimes when you say you got to watch this, and they watch it, they don't get it, right?
Right.
And they just sit there and they're not laughing.
Yeah, I think your framing of the movie as a takeoff on the Maltese Falcon really, really helped me be able to frame the movie in my mind. Because when you're watching it, it looks like a random bunch of events and about a bunch of guys going bowling for half the movie. So you're kind of like, what am I watching exactly?
It's all about the characters, really. It's like 90% about the characters interacting with each other and upsetting each other. And then the other 10% is this mystery story. Is she missing, and where is she, and who's going to pay the ransom, and all that kind of stuff. Well,
and where is the money? Yeah. Yes. Where'd the $1 million go? Yeah.
And it's underwear now. It's a bag of underwear.
And it's based on a guy, Huddleston. I can't remember his first name, Danny or Don Huddleston. And believe it or not, that guy acts like the dude, and so that's what kind of gave him the idea to write the whole story, because they met this guy who acts like that. Well, here's a news flash for you. Here's a scoop for you. This lady isn't coming to our movie premieres that we've been having at our house, for the movie I made. Anyway, she told me that she used to work with that guy,
she used to work with that Huddleston guy, and he did act like the dude. And she said he didn't really do very much work.
Our next topic is, wow, this is quite a topic. It is a 58% score at Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is actually generous for this turkey. Wonder Woman 1984. Yeah, Diana Prince returns in this one with Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal. Box office of $166 million, budget of $200 million. Directed by Patty Jenkins. This is quite a movie. Alan, what are your thoughts initially on Wonder Woman 1984?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that Patty Jenkins got so much acclaim for the first Wonder Woman movie that she got carte blanche to do whatever she wanted, and evidently she didn't listen to anyone else. And she just did what she wanted. That's my impression, because a whole lot of the movie makes no sense whatsoever to me. And it's just laughable. It's so sad.
Yes. Yeah, let me talk about some of the big problems in this movie. Technically, photographic-wise, it's beautiful. You know, it's technically done correct.
Mm-hmm.
There's a nice fight scene in the mall, but there's nothing in here. The writing is so ridiculous about a wishing stone that everybody in the world eventually gets to wish on and makes a wish. And then to tie it all up at the end of the movie, they have to get rid of that wish by undoing it. In the meantime, she wishes to have Steve Trevor back. And so Steve Trevor's spirit inhabits the body of some dude. Could be Jeff Bridges, the dude. We don't know who he is. And so she is sleeping with this guy and carrying on with him. And we see Chris Pine, the actor, in this guy's place. But we know the whole time it's really Jeff Bridges, the dude. And so it's really, yeah, it's crazy. And then like he can fly any airplane, even though the airplanes he at one time flew were all stick airplanes. But he jumps into a fighter jet, and man, all planes are the same. Click, 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 off he goes. And you know, beautiful visually, this film again, but this is so bad. This doesn't even cross over to Dora the Explorer quite logic. I mean, it's infantile how bad this is. It's such a waste of money and talent, and so much could have been. So what else do you think about Wonder Woman 1984?
I'm just really glad. I'm glad I streamed it and did not, go pay to watch it anywhere, and streamed it for free. And I had to watch it in 3 or 4 chunks because I was so upset, and I just honestly didn't want to continue watching it because nothing was making sense. But I did continue just so I could talk about it like this, later.
I think they were trying for like awkward 80 comedy. That's where I guess suppose Kristen Wiig came in. She's the ugly girl that gets changed into the pretty girl, and that's her journey, and then eventually turned into a human leopard. So, a CG battle ensues at the end of this turkey.
Yeah.
So, on a score of 1 to 10, I have to sadly give Wonder Woman 1984 like a 3. Woo! That's devastating for
generous.
me. What do you think? It's so generous.
Mainly the big problem with me was at the end when she basically had to convince everyone to give up their wishes. How are you going to get everyone to do anything, first of all? And then what if they wished for their relatives to come back alive or something? You're going to, okay, I take it back. They're all dead again. Not all these people are going to give their wishes up,
It was like a 1962 DC script by Carmen Infantino written in 15 minutes,
There you go.
So they could put a bunch of floating heads on the cover, and so Wonder Woman's in trouble. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible
it was hard
film.
to get through.
It's nonsensical as hell.
I keep thinking of when Steve Rogers comes back from 40 years, earlier. And the only thing that really freaked him out were trash cans were a different shape.
And I had a wish. I kept wishing for a better movie. So that was what's going on with me.
Did you enjoy the part where they always make fun of the guy in those woke films like this, where he comes out in different weird outfits and she's like, no, change it to something else even funnier?
Yeah, we're doing the dress up thing. I mean, wow. There is so much not to enjoy in this movie. Wow. Anyway, a complete burn of $200 million. Set fire to cash. Our next topic is something near and dear to myself. This is my favorite movie, I think, of the last 10 years, possibly. Absolutely loved it. And you're saying, Dan, what movie could that possibly be? Well, it is Mad Max Fury Road from 2015 with a 97% Rotten Tomatoes score, directed by George Miller at a budget of $154 million. This is a thrill ride, an adventure film. It's like you're caught in a fever dream from the word go. You could call this perhaps the most ambitious chase movie ever. Just terrific. Charlize Theron, what's his name? Tom Hardy. Nicholas Hoult. Everybody is absolutely terrific in this.
I just rewatched the movie again, and it's like you said, it's this big thrill ride, chase after chase.
Well, Alan, you read the book. What are some of your takeaways from the making of Mad Max?
Okay, this book just came out. Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, The Wild and True Story of Mad Max Fury Road by Kyle Buchanan. One thing right off, I did not realize that this movie took 20 years.
So, Alan, you say that the movie took 20 whatever years to make.
Yeah.
And so that makes, Tom Hardy like 16 when he signs on. They must have had other projects set up with other people? Is that what had happened?
Yes, they originally asked Mel Gibson, who was being a bastard, and they eventually talked him into doing it for $25 million, which was a fourth of the entire budget of the film. And I guess probably the studios wouldn't take it anyway unless Mel was attached, because they just couldn't figure anyone else could be Mad Max.
He was attached for many years, and then he wasn't. Then what happened?
Well, it kept falling apart. The studio had a different, studio head, and he said, we're not doing that movie. we're not gonna. It was a week before they were going to start filming. It was like 97 or something, and they shut him down. And so at some point, Mel just was too old. They just figured he's too old to do it now, and they started already thinking of someone else who's going to have to fill his shoes, and that was going to be tough, But they didn't really. It all came back around in 2000, 2005, whatever, and that's when they started talking to other people closer to the actual filming when they nailed it down.
What drove this guy to keep trying to make the movie for 20 years? What was going on? Why did he do it?
Well, he made the other. He was a doctor, and then he decided he was going to make movies. And then he shot the first Mad Max, made that just on a no budget kind of, thing. And Mel Gibson was a drama student. And so it just took off. But it became so popular that he decided, hey, I'm just going to direct movies from now on. It was like his big start. And so it was his goal to just keep making Mad Max movies. But then he got busy doing other stuff. After the Thunderdome, he kind of lost interest because the studios stepped in and they took away, like half that movie is George Miller, and then the other half is the studio. And they started changing things, and that upset him, and he just kind of went underground, and wasn't interested again until people started bringing it all up again in the 90s.
Yeah, it's unusual for someone to work on something for so long. Usually you give up. Year 15, you throw in the towel. You know what I mean?
I think it had to do with the crew and the people he had building the cars and the stunt guys. They were so excited that even when he said it's all shut down, they're like, well, we'll go out and we'll bash some cars and work out the stunts. They just weren't going to give up. Tell
me about the filming itself. It was filmed in Nambia, I think. Is that true?
Yeah. and they hired an old Saul, I think his last name was Saul, and he was a very experienced camera guy, and he was first of all, George Miller was used to doing everything kind of a low budget, right? Even though those other Max movies were bigger budget, he was just used to doing everything cheap as possible. And then when he came, like, he wasn't going to add any music to this one. It was all action. And he wasn't even going to have them ever say anything to each other. And everybody's like, they got to talk to each other a little bit, you know. And then they brought in a sound guy to put in music here and there. And then he snuck in more and more and more until the whole movie had, you know, music behind it. So they had to convince George to go big, you know, with everything except the stunts were his main concern, you know. That's what he really wanted to concentrate on.
Crazy that they shipped everything over to Nambia to film this thing. How long did it take to film?
I think it took almost a year. And you mean once they started the actual filming?
Yes.
Because it took a long time to get that stuff to Nambia. 150 vehicles to Nambia.
Whoa.
Oh, my God. And all the equipment and stuff. It's like big tankers, you know, taking all that stuff.
Now, am I correct in thinking that after the movie was made, the studio saw the movie and said, okay, we got to put more money into this movie, and so they went back and reshot the movie to make it even better? They dumped another like $50,000 in. Is that something that happened?
Yes, he needed 2 more weeks. He'd gone over his deadline, and he said, I just need 2 more weeks. I need to film the Citadel part where you first see the war boys and all, you know, and then he needed an ending. He didn't have the beginning or the end yet, and they just said, no, you're done, and so you got to pack up and leave Nambia. And he's like, you do know that I'll have to come back, and it'll cost you triple, and I'll have to film the beginning and the end, you know. And then that's exactly what happened. Eventually, when they saw the edit and they started getting excited, then they were like, okay, here you go. Here's some more money. Go back. But this time he went to, he was already in Australia. He just went there and filmed the Citadel, supposedly. The ending scenes they needed weren't in Nambia, right, because they weren't going to pay that much, I guess. Shipped all this stuff back out there again. But,
now, it took him 2 years after the filming to finalize this film, to edit the thing?
Yes. And at one point, thank God he had Final Cut in the contract, right? Because they tried to screw him, and they even hired editors to take the footage and do an edit at the same time that he was, because they didn't trust him. They didn't think what little they saw was just crazy, and they kept thinking, this is nuts. You know, this isn't a movie. It's just a bunch of weird action scenes, because they hadn't seen his final edit yet. But they kept demanding to see what he had, even though it wasn't done. And he kept saying, it's not going to make sense because I'm not done. But they kept insisting, and so they would show it and go, what the fuck, man? And he would just ignore them. He had to ignore them constantly. And then he found out they were editing their own version. And then they said, we're going to have a screening with all the cast and crew and all the big wigs, you know, at 20th Century Fox, wherever. And we're going to pick. We're going to let everyone decide if our edit is better than your edit. And he actually agreed to that, to my surprise. And so they did the screening with both versions, and they hated the studio's version after they saw his version. They're like, okay, you win. You know, you did a better job.
That's how he got them to acquiesce. That's crazy.
He had to just let them see for themselves, yeah.
How did he get Charlize Theron into this movie? She's like the biggest movie star on the planet. How did he get her in there?
And she's the one that said, I'll shave my head. He didn't ask her to do that. She's like, I want to do this movie so bad. She was 100% because she loved the other Mad Max movies, and she was just whatever. She would do whatever it took, you know. And she's kind of a badass. She grew up in a ranch in Africa.
How did Tom Hardy get attached to this project?
They liked his movie that you and I were talking about, where he was the Russian boxer. Was he Russian?
Yes.
And he was a boxer, and he was. It's almost like a monologue thing where he's in front of the camera just telling his story, kind of thing. And he's so believable that he's this guy. It's just, fantastic acting job. And when they saw that, they're like, this is our man, this is our guy.
And evidently there's some kind of friction between him and Charisse, or just between Hardy and the director. What was the friction there?
It was Hardy and everybody, as it turned out. Yeah, he was giving everyone a tough time, and he was just acting like a badass. And he and Charlize supposedly had it out, and usually you're like, okay, we're in this together. We'll make it work. We'll do what we have to do. He wouldn't talk like that. He's just like, I'm Mad Max. Fuck you. That was his attitude. And she's like, well, okay. I guess that's the way it's going to be, And then he was even worse on the director. Every time the director would say, okay, now I just want you to go from point A to point B, go, why would I do that? Why am I doing that? And Charlize would even say, just do what the director is telling you to do. He knows what he's doing. Just do it, But Tom just kept questioning everything until everybody was hating him back, practically.
Yeah, would you call it a post-apocalyptic chase movie? Is that what you'd call it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's sort of, I kept wondering if it's sort of like steampunk, but it's set in the future instead of being in the past. But it's, what they call it? There's different genres, and steampunk is like the 1800s. But then there's diesel punk, which this would be more diesel punk because they're driving all the gas-powered, vehicles and stuff, but it's still apocalyptic. So I think that's exactly what it would be considered, diesel punk.
If you were going to describe the story of this movie to a 10-year-old, what would you tell him?
That the world has been basically destroyed, and there's only a few people left in the world, and they're all fighting for water and gas. And she tries to save these 5 women from the evil sort of emperor guy. He's the leader. And she's trying to save these 5 wives, they called them, from him. And he's just using them to try to have babies, have more, offspring. He's just using them for that. And so she wants, Furiosa is a big, lieutenant in his army, as it turns out. And then he sends her to take these women to another place. And she goes off and thinks, this is my chance to actually, save them. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, not to correct you, but what happens is Furiosa is sent to go to get gasoline at Gastown. She helps the 5 wives escape.
Oh, that's right.
From Immortan Joe. Yeah, she helps them escape. She didn't steal them, but she helps them escape. And so that's what leads Immortan Joe on the chase. He has to recover his wives.
And no one at first knows that they're on her rig, her war rig. Yeah, they find out they're missing, and then they figure it out. But
how is it a doctor from Australia can direct such a movie like this, Alan? Because the effects are done right, the fights are done right, the dialogue, the intimate stuff's done right. Like, how is it a guy knowing nothing can do so well? What's the secret sauce for this guy?
I think the first thing he did is he got all the best, at least in this film, he got all the best stunt guys he could find. And then he got them all totally pumped up and ready to do this. And then he got the best artists to do the storyboards. He just always found the best people, and he listened to them. That was the big thing. That's the smartest thing, is that you get directors like the one for Wonder Woman 84, and she evidently didn't listen to anyone said at any time and just did it her way, right or wrong. But he took the advice from all the different, areas of filmmaking. The camera guy, he let him do his thing. He just let him go. And then he let the stunt guys give him ideas. And they had plenty of time to train because of all the delays over the years.
The technology marched on, ideas marched on, people changed?
Well, first of all, one of the stunt guys in the second Mad Max, the Road Warrior, he became the head of the stunt guys. He was head of the crew on Mad Max. So he's
still alive.
He was older,
wow.
But now, he was older, but now he's telling them, he's like organizing everything for George Miller. So Miller's
Wow.
really good at trying to pull these guys from, that far back, into still helping him out. That was great.
How did the director feel about the film, in as much as, does he want to make another one?
That's a good question. There's a whole chapter about, and this was fascinating to me because I couldn't remember, like the Oscars for 2015 and all that. So this was fascinating ending to the book to me, was how it turned out. The Mad Max Fury Road. So, well, first of all, they were shocked. They started getting nominated for all these, best director and best picture and all. They were shocked because these kind of movies usually get overlooked, right? It's more,
True.
It's more of somebody's going to die from a incurable disease or something, or it's a historical Lincoln is doing this. Those are the ones they always pick, But this one, everyone loved it though. Yeah, and it got it won 6 awards and nominated for even more. They were talking about going back to where it's like a young Furiosa. I think that's what the next one's going to be. They're going to go back to where her story begins. Yeah.
Is this going to be another long production, or is this something that's actually happening?
They're just talking about it right now.
He's
know.
storyboarding in a basement somewhere in Australia right now.
He's probably got it already worked out.
I find what I take away from this movie, besides being an excellently staged chase, thrill, suspense ride visually. Visually, there's nothing like it. It is eye candy to the extreme. The core of this film, I guess, the soul of it, you'd call it, is the relationship between Furiosa and Tom Hardy, who is playing Mad Max. What brings them together is fate, and these are two people who do not trust anyone and are not in the position to trust anyone, and yet they eventually have to trust each other, and Tom Hardy comes to save her life. And that is the emotional peak of the film, whether you know it's happening or not. You think it's the chase and them crashing and all this stuff, but really that is the moment when he saves her life, because he's the universal donor, which is established in the very first 2 minutes of the movie. It's amazing. They tattooed on his back. And then at the end of the movie, I find it so exhilarating, the end. I think this has one of the greatest endings I've ever seen. And I guess his wife edited the movie.
Yes.
Anyway, the ending, yes, exhilarating score. And they've returned now to the city, and Mad Max slips away from Charlize Theron, and he slips into the crowd, and he's gone, and the music climaxes. And it is such a fantastic ending to a movie, bringing the culmination of this relationship, because the two of them look at each other for a split second, and she acknowledges what he did, and he acknowledges what she did. They nod at each other, and he's gone forever. It is so haunting, so great, so beautiful, and that is the soul of this film. As I said, the relationship between these two people, and you wouldn't think it would be, in the middle of this incredible action movie. It's actually filled with a lot of humanity that way, and that's what I took away from the movie. I loved it. All right, folks, we have a surprise today on the Alan and Dan Review Stuff show, and there's nothing more we love than surprises, and Alan as well. Alan, behind this curtain I have over this, let me pull back the curtain. And yes,
Sure.
Alan, this is the big wheel of random topics. Now I'm going to spin this, baby. Yep, I'm going to spin it. Spinning the wheel. All right, here it goes. Yep, just let it go, let it go. And, okay, random topic is the original Planet of the Apes starring Charlton Heston. Alan, go ahead and frame this movie for our audience that may not know about it.
Well, now that you've thrown this at me at the last second, first of all, they're astronauts that crash down. They think they're on regular Earth, I think, at first. It's sort of like a desert-looking area, best I remember. And then they start to realize that it's not people, but they're apes that act like people. and then they get captured, and they're in like bamboo jails or whatever. Yeah, and then the flip to the end is when they realize they really were on Earth. It's just they're in the future or something. They're either in the future after an apocalypse because they see the Statue of Liberty sticking up out of the beach, right?
Boy, Alan just gives it all away in 3 sentences, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Well,
and,
they should have seen it by now. They've had 40 years, 50 years.
Spoiler alert.
I think,
Spoiler
right?
alert. Maybe 68.
68, okay.
You may have to look it up. Here's what I think is so great about Planet of the Apes. Alan gives away the surprise ending. This is a script by Rod Serling. And it opens up in the cockpit of the spaceship as Charlton Heston is smoking a cigar. And I guess for back then it was pretty high tech, but it's pretty much egg foam all around him. And on the desk before him is a giant clock, as if they're blind. You could see this thing from like 50 yards, and it's metering the time, and just to show us that time on Earth is one thing, and that the time they're experiencing is another. And so Charlton Heston is lamenting about what assholes everybody back on Earth are, and he's hoping that there's a better class of men coming out of the future than the assholes he left behind. So he gives himself an injection, puts out the cigar, takes a look at his other comrades who are frozen in these tubes. He jumps into one of these freeze tubes himself and then freezes himself into cryogenic sleep. The titles of the movie begin, which is weird, actual just lights, looks like a kid's kaleidoscope. And then we see the spaceship in water sinking, and they come awake inside the capsule, barely escape as the spaceship sinks. One of the crew members, a female, dies. There's only 3 men left, and they jump onto a little raft, and they raft themselves away from the sinking ship onto the shore, and thus begins their adventure on Planet of the Apes. And as Alan said, it turns out that after a long 20-minute walk, these guys discover that the world is, in fact, ruled by apes. And it is a scary opening for this realization where they hunt the humans ruthlessly and kill them like game. Mm-hmm. And it is really a horror movie in some respects, because it's like a nightmare for the main character is called Taylor, played by Charlton Heston, and he's on a nightmare, much like Mad Max was on a nightmare from that moment forward. Nothing, he has no power, he has no control, everything happens to him. He has no agency. And finally, he's able to escape the ape city, and he discovers a buried city that the apes have been covering up. The Council of Apes has actually been hiding the truth that at one point human beings, they think, may have ruled the earth, but they're hiding that up so the apes don't know that. And Charlton Heston jumps on the back of a horse with his girlfriend Nova, a girl he escaped with from Ape City, and they come across, just as Alan said, the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand, 10 stories high, and Charlton Heston breaks down on the beach, and he's like, damn you to hell, you did it, you blew everything up. One of the most famous scenes ever, while he's castigating the people in the past, and his realization that he's actually been on Earth the whole time is the huge twist of the movie. And when you first see it, when you first experience it, it actually makes your stomach hurt. You're like, oh my God, he's been on Earth, because you think he's millions and millions of miles away from Earth. You have no idea he's on Earth. They don't give you any indication at all that he's on Earth till that moment. So there's no way to see it. There's no way to think it's going to happen. It is wonderful. It's so good. It's such a classic movie, and even today it holds up. It has a lot of momentum, and it's eerie and it's creepy, and it sticks with you after you watch it. So, Alan, what are your thoughts about Planet of the Apes?
Well, one part I remember is that they were all treating him like a bad animal, and then one doctor, the female Dr. Zira, I think it is, who I now see is played by Kim Hunter. and she was one of the apes that starts to befriend them, and try to help them, and maybe even helps them escape. I can't remember exactly.
She does.
But I remember she did. Some of them were Roddy McDowell was Cornelius, and it was hard to tell who these people are with the masks and all, but you could tell by their voice to some degree. But I just thought it was great. Unfortunately, the sequels were like B movies. I just remember one of the sequels, they all got on a school bus and drove around. It was like
another big takeaway from the original Planet of the Apes, and it still holds up today, which is really incredible when you consider how far movies have come, is the makeup of the apes holds up even today. It was a big step forward using latex and the way they did it, and it worked. The actors could act underneath the makeup, still emote, still talk. They would eat lunch through straws, basically, because they couldn't really eat solid food while they were in the makeup. It would destroy the latex. And it was like I said, revolutionary makeup that even today, if you go and watch the movie, it doesn't look silly or somehow, dumb like so many old movies look. It looks very practical, very real, and very grounded. And that allows you to enter this world without being pulled out of it and going, oh, this is fake as hell. And the way they act hunched over like apes, where they use their hands, it's really, really well executed. And so that's something to think about when you watch this movie, that is something was great about the movie and continues to be great about it.
One thing about the new sequels, were there 3? I know there were 2 of the new ones that came out.
There's 3
in the last 10 years or whatever. And now, who was the star? I always forget.
James Franco was in the first one.
And that wasn't him. It was...
No, James Franco's in the first one.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about one of the others then, one of the second one or whatever.
Okay, whatever one of those. Go on.
The one at Wahlberg? That's it.
Yep.
Okay. Wahlberg was trying to act like Charlton Heston, right? And it's not working. Nobody's listened to her. And he gets up and he starts saying, everybody, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm like, it's not working for me. That's not working. It just didn't have the power that Charlton Heston had, to do that kind of thing.
I totally agree. Alan is referencing the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes starring Wahlberg. Okay. I didn't catch up on that just a second ago. And, yeah, that is a huge...
the newer ones.
Yeah, but not part of a trilogy at all. It's not a part of anything. Anyway, it's a standalone film, but that is a particularly heinous film, very, very poorly done. Tim Burton, I don't know what he was thinking, what he was doing when he wrote this. There's no twist, there's no surprises, and at the end of it, he runs into a very CG Lincoln Monument, but the guy sitting in the Lincoln Monument chair is an ape, and it's so anticlimactic because he's been in a planet full of apes we knew the whole time anyway. So there is nothing in that movie, and compared to Charlton Heston, who was able to deliver the 10 Commandments, Wahlberg is a complete lightweight. He's now running around in Uncharted, doing whatever he's doing in Uncharted, and man, talk about just cashing checks and running around in a green screen world, that Uncharted movie. Really something. Anyway, anything else you'd like to talk about with the original Planet of the Apes?
No, all I could also remember is some kind of behind the scenes of the making of the first Planet of the Apes, and they had a camp where they taught everyone to act like monkeys for like a week or 2. And they had to run around.
Monkey camp.
Monkey camp.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious.